I want to tell the story of my first love, a boy I grew up with. Though it has been decades since I last saw him, I've only realized that he was my first love. His name was Drew, and my name in that lifetime removed was Daniel. Drew and I lived next to each other. As kids, we were inseparable, exploring the woodlands that surrounded the suburb where our homes were situated, building forts and generally playing within our own imaginations, the way children do. One day, we climbed into his dad's little speedster and headed across the country while still remaining parked in the closed garage. We had many adventures and had just made it to California when his dad yelled at us to get out of his car. As we grew into our teens, we became more interested in sex. We started sneaking Playboys out of our parents' house so that we could look at them in the tent while camping out. For my part, the images stirred something in me I didn't quite understand. There was a yearning, part sexual, but partially painful, like an incision or like pouring salt into a wound. Beyond that, I had little understanding of these feelings except that they were connected to something so taboo in the world of the 1970s that I didn't even have the vocabulary to define it. When we worked ourselves into a state, we would go out into the back of the yard in the dark and jack off. For me, masturbation was a mixed bag like so much else. While I was curious about genitalia, male and female, I did not like my own. As much as I masturbated, which at that time was every day, it was an activity from which I would displace myself as I did it, and then forget about it. Much as I disliked my penis, seeing Drew's erect penis exposed attracted my attention in spite of myself. It stirred me more than the female nudes. In time, when we went out into the shadows to jack off, I would find myself fantasizing about touching Drew's cock. This went on for a year or so, until one night, when camping out in my backyard, we had worked ourselves into such a state that wandering out into the back 40 would provide a poor resolution. We were listening to Drew's transistor radio. The DJ mentioned the current rumor that Mick Jagger and David Bowie had a fling. I looked at Drew. Do you think there is anything wrong with that? Two guys? No, they're both bisexual. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Neither do I. Drew agreed. I drew closer, so that we were facing each other, almost touching our knees. Drew inched forward until we were touching. We were looking directly at each other. My long blonde hair hung down around my face. Placing my hands on my own knees, I said, "Let's do this at the same time." "Okay," Drew placed his hands on his knees. As we looked into each other's eyes, I moved my hands to his knees, and he moved his to mine. I believe it was the first time either of us had touched another on the knee. We sat there, taking in the experience of touching each other. Then we started sliding our hands up our legs. As we grasped each other's penis, we both gasped. Drew cried out, "Daniel!" Then we were exploring. After a bit, to make it easier, we lay down side by side, head to toe. That night, we explored touch and oral sex. When we were ready, we went back out into the dark and masturbated by ourselves. Soon we were making out regularly. Once we tried intercourse because Drew suggested it, but we really didn't know what we were doing and found it too uncomfortable. We engaged in oral sex, though never to completion. We did begin jacking each other off when we were done. Our romance went on for years, until we were 18, and I had graduated school. Neither of us ever talked about it with another person. It was suspected, though. As our relationship progressed, I found something was missing. It took me a while to realize what the problem was. I had fallen in love with Drew. We were growing up. Our relationship needed to grow. It was time to admit this was more than a casual sex. We had been together for 3 years. Drew had girlfriends as well, but I did not. Even he was wondering about me. We were ready to take our sex to the next step. It was time for us to really make love. Yet there was a part of me that remained uncertain. I wanted to be with a woman. I thought I was bisexual, but I was as confused as ever, and as dysphoric. One thing I did know was that I enjoyed oral sex with Drew. And I found that I enjoyed sucking Drew's dick more than I enjoyed having him suck mine. At this time, I was going through an effeminate period. After graduating school, I traveled out west and back by myself. Not in a sports car, but by bus, rail, and thumb. I had tried oral sex with a couple other men around my own age. While I enjoyed having sex with them, I enjoyed it even more with Drew. When I returned, we met and had sex. Drew missed me as well. There was a new passion to our sex and a new depth. After all these years, we were relaxing into it, and we were both awakening to our changing relationship. I wanted to do something for Drew, so I told him I was going to suck him off. He wasn't sure, but he stopped protesting when I went down on him. I gave him the most loving blow job I'd ever given in my little experience. I kissed his cock and made love to it. Soon we were 69. We said little about it afterward. Drew had to go pick up his younger brother. But I'm sure both of us knew that the next time we met in private, we were going to have to talk. Drew skipped school, and we met out in the woods. We wandered off the trails until we found a wooded glen where no one would disturb us. We sat side by side on a fallen tree. Each of us was waiting for the other to make the first move. I wanted to go down on Drew again, but before I did, I wanted to ask him to kiss me. I was afraid to ask him, though. Afraid he wouldn't, and afraid he would. I didn't understand why I wanted him to kiss me. I just knew I wanted it. What I didn't understand is that I didn't want him to kiss me as a man kissing a man. I wanted him to kiss me as a man kissing a woman. Had he done that, I would have been his. But I couldn't ask him to kiss me, nor could I speak about it. We both continued to sit there silently, and our relationship ended in that glen because it could no longer progress. We never met again, and our friendship ceased that day. We saw each other out at parties, but whatever was between us was over. Drew had a string of girlfriends. I remained single a few more years before I eventually had sex with a woman. The years passed. I was married, had children, lived a full life, but an incomplete one. Through all of those years, nothing ever matched my relationship with Drew. About 25 years ago, I was beginning to realize my truth. The vocabulary had developed. I had already admitted to being bisexual, and I was beginning to wake up to the fact that I was a woman in a man's body. Once I cracked my way out of that eggshell, I understood fully. I'm not gay. I am a heterosexual woman. But when you transform your gender, it is like looking at the world through a mirror. If you were gay before, you are straight now. If you were straight, now you are a lesbian. I may be straight, but I lived an entire lifetime as a male. That cannot be ignored. I already played that ignorance game for an entire lifetime, and see where it has got me. I am a transgender woman. But beyond that, I am non-binary, male and female both, and something beyond either. Any relationship that I'm in will be queer. I have made peace with my male genitals, though I will have a vaginoplasty when the right opportunity presents itself. And I have realized that I want a man who will treat me like a woman. Having realized all this, I now admit it. The first love of my life was a boy named Drew. I hope that he has found as much happiness in this life as I have now. Drew, I did love you, but we were both too young and confused.